Go. So, welcome everybody. Tonight's session is about running a person-centred review. It's going to be led by myself and Viv from Sendias, and we've also very lucky that we've got some Senkos from St Christopher's, Hannah and Rachel, who are going to be sharing their practice in their schools. As always, we want you to use the chat to ask us any questions, to stop us at any point if we've not made ourselves clear, and please use that chat to be as interactive as you want to be to make sure this meets your needs for tonight. So we will be, Viv is going to go through the legalities of the stuff around EHCP reviews, but this isn't a session just about EHCP reviews and annual reviews. We hope it's applicable to all SEN review meetings. So Viv will go through the legalities briefly. I'll look briefly at some of the tools that can help us, and then most importantly, we're going to go to Rachel from St Christopher's, who will talk about how they do it at their school. And we'll finish off, fingers crossed that the IT works. I've got an amazing assistant this evening. So fingers crossed we will finish off with a video. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass over to Viv, and we will move on to the next slide, please.
Hi everybody, I'm Viv Worsley from Stockport Sendias, and that's the Send Information Advice and Support Service. Yesterday in the webinar, I'm not sure who attended it, but we were looking at how we best enable people to participate, and we looked at the duty and within the code of practice, and I've just highlighted these bits here, and it's Section 1.1 of the views, wishes and feelings of the children and young people and the child's parents, the importance of those participating fully as possible in decisions and being provided with information support necessary to enable that participation. And the principles are designed to support the points below. I won't go through it all. If you could have the next slide, please, Liz. So chapter 2 is about impartial information, advice and support. And this just goes through the kind of support available, what the local authority needs to meet. And the next slide, please. So I just wanted to have a look at EHCP annual review process, and it's a statutory process. And it has timescales, and all steps need completing for it to be finished. So just have a quick run through. Timescales: first review within 12 months. The following steps are consulting with the parent, child or young person, taking account of their views, wishes and feelings, a meeting taking place, information gathered before the meeting and circulated 2 weeks before the meeting, a report of the meeting circulated to everyone who attended and submitted, and then the local authority reviews it. There is a really comprehensive checklist there from IPSI, which is really good, and a nice flowchart timeline included on that slide as well for everyone to have a look at. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what I've just made reference to another bit of it, which is reviews for children aged 0 to 5, and also to consider the transfer between phases of education information there. And it's just referenced, and all those references are the code of practice, and there's a link there at the bottom for the code of practice. Next slide, please. Okay, so yesterday we were looking at enabling open and honest conversations, and basically person-centered thinking is about enabling people to take part and how we can best set that situation up and you know, have good outcomes, a good meeting, a good conversation. Jackie showed me this cartoon, which I thought was quite good. Just shows that there's a parent there sat there with all these people around them, and the young person too, and how daunting that might feel for everybody. Next slide, please. And yesterday, if you were in attendance, we sort of did a interactive bit of what we thought we'd start our good day off with and what we'd start our bad day off with. And I've framed this within a parent who's coming to a meeting. I won't go through all of it, but the good days is, you know, everything that happened that set that conversational meeting up to have a really good outcome, including morning routines, how people are feeling, what happened when they got into school, what happened when they met the school staff, what happened during the meeting and what happened after. And then the not so good one was just about people not having sleep, being late, worrying about other things, not knowing what's going on with the meeting, who's in the meeting, and what's going to happen after the meeting. And they'll be on the slide for you to review later. Okay, next slide, please. So we're just going to try and have a bit, well, we were going to have a bit of an interactive, but these are some feedback that we've got from that people felt was a good meeting. And people highlighted that, you know, it was a comfy, relaxed environment with visual boards, refreshments are always welcome, minimum paper flying around so people don't get lost. We're obviously talking about person-centered approaches today, and you know, people being really involved and participating and getting those really good outcomes. Questions directed to the child or young person in a language accessible, all the material accessible, and any actions documented, assigned and agreed, and considering how feedback is going to be given to the child or young person. And then the next slide, had a bit of feedback about what wasn't so good when the attendee list was unclear, introductions not made. I think sometimes, you know, that was just people assume people know each other. Held in a small office or a massive boardroom, no time given to read through the reports, or they're inaccessible to the child or young person. Meeting focuses on another issue, so there might have been something that happened that day, or there was issues with the timetable. And so the main bits of it are rushed, and we don't get through what we needed to get through. Send code typing into the laptop as the meeting progresses, and I think that was more about being attending to what was being said and being included in the meeting. The child or young person spoken about indirectly, so is she going to do this when they're sat in the meeting? You know, if possible, you're going to empower those children and young people to give their opinions and views and wishes. And the child or young person brought in for a short contribution, then sent back to class or told to wait outside, and people don't know if they're coming or going. Maybe the Senko school staff professionals in the meeting feels like they talk the majority of the time, and so we can miss a bit of input from the parent and carer and young person, which is obviously the vital bit. Next slide, please. Over to Jackie.
Okay, so thinking through what Viv just said, it's really about thinking right from the very start about how to involve the child and put the child at the centre of the process. So can they send on the right there's a format of a meeting, can they send the invite out to the people that are going to be coming? Can you talk to them about which bits they want to attend? If they don't want to be there for the whole meeting, which bits do they want to be in for? And as Viv said, what are they going to do for the rest of the time? Agree perhaps refreshments. Could they serve the refreshments, or could they choose their favourite biscuits to be on offer? I know Jo at Norris Bank, she took that idea on, and each child's review, they put out their favourite biscuits. Or maybe they might want to pick some music to people to come into. Anything, little bits can really make a big difference to make it feel like their review. But really, we don't want it just to be that tokenistic stuff. It's about making them feel really involved. And so one of the key things is thinking, how will you collect their views, and how will you do that in an accessible way that we really make sure that their voice is heard and at the centre of the process. Next slide, please. So many of you will have heard of Helen Sanderson tools, and this is where we've nicked all of this from. So we're going to share the tools with you, but obviously you've got the tools, but you need to have the person-centered thinking behind it all. So the picture on the left there really reiterates what we've already talked about last night and today. What does the layout look like? Does it feel welcoming? Are we in a circle or a semicircle? Even if we've got a very small room, how are we going to make it feel welcoming and inclusive? We've got music there, we've got biscuits and refreshments, and as Viv said, we've got the key headings up around the room so we can all see what the agenda is. We all know what's going to come next. And one of the key things we talked about last night, and I just want to reiterate, is who's here, and making sure that we don't just say, oh, this is Sue, but we say this is Sue and her role is, she's a teaching assistant and blah, blah, blah. Too often professionals might say the name of someone without explaining the role and the influence that person has on provision. So we talked a lot about the co-production charter. Many schools have said they're starting meetings and making sure everybody refers to this so we understand the ground rules in terms of honest and open communication and trust. So very handy to have that available. Next slide, please. We do encourage all of you to start with the positives, what we like and admire about the child, and this can then go on to the one-page profile. You might do that as it shows with post-it stickers that people fill them in there and then and go and put them on the board, or you might just do it in a more informal way where people talk about all the things we like and admire about that child. And I really do think that we have to be very aware that for many of our children with additional needs, sometimes parents and carers and the child only hear the negatives. Not if you continue in those wonderful continuous positive discussions, but for some, their experiences are often the negative stories. So to start a meeting off with what do we love and admire about a child is very, very powerful, and often a time where a family can sit and feel so proud to hear all those wonderful things being said about their young person. Next slide, please. Then the other tool from Helen Sanderson is the what's working, what's not working. You might use this as a to separate it into the young person, the family and staff views, or you might just take it as a general breaking it up into what's working and what's not. The aim of this is that we're hearing all perspectives, we're getting everybody's view so that we've got that holistic view of what's working and what's not. We're not just thinking about school, we're thinking about everything that's going on in that young person's life so that we can then ensure everyone's listened to and we're thinking about the things that are positive that we are now learning work for the child and the things that we need to work on. Next slide, please. So this sort of sums it up in a quite simple way, all the things we've talked about before. Right at the bottom, what do we like and admire, what's important, the aspirations in the middle, what's the star, what's the gold at the end of the rainbow that we're aiming for, and then thinking about our outcomes. And although this example says next year or two, we know for our SEND support plans it's not that, it's going to be the next term or two. It might, even if we're doing a quick review, it might be the next week or two. So obviously that would change. And then what we're going to do, who's doing what, who's taking responsibility, and what are we going to do about it. So I'm now going to pass over to Hannah and Rachel. If you would like to show yourselves, as it were, turn your videos on and unmute yourselves. And if we move on to the next slide, please.
Oh, hi everyone. So just carrying on from Jackie, I'm Rachel, which I'm the Senko at St Christopher's, and Hannah is with me, who was the previous Senko. So it's been a bit of a long process, this process of co-production at our school. And I just popped that quote on because I really thought it was a really nice one. You know, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. And that's something that, you know, at St Christopher's, we're really trying to do with our parents. Next slide, please, Liz. So at St Christopher's, we have a lot of pride in the fact that we are a restorative school, and it is like a golden thread that runs through everything we do. And when we were looking at our SEND reviews, one of the things that we talked about was how do we make sure that we are kind of living by our restorative mission, and being in that with Box, making sure that we are being high challenge but also high support with our parents and our children when we are creating our SEND support plans. Next slide, Liz. So I will just say, I've put this with the plan that was our previous plan, the format. I know that we are working to use the new format, which we are working at how we're going to use our transition for that. So this is the old plan, and one of the ways that we started our co-production was by trying to mirror that plan onto a large whiteboard in our meeting room, where the parents would come in, and they would come in and it would be blank. So if you just click, Liz, we'll have a look at that. Oh, there we go. So we mirrored this onto our whiteboard in exactly the same format of, you know, what's going well, what is still tricky, our next steps, and how are we going to get there. Because we wanted to make sure that we completed this plan collaboratively with parents, with teachers, the Senko, and the other agencies involved. Okay, next slide, Liz. So I'll pass you on to
So basically, before we changed it, teachers would come to the meetings with the plans already done. They'd already thought of what the next steps were and what they'd put in place, and then would present that to the parents. And the parents didn't have anything to do with it at all, really. You're just telling them how it was going to be. So obviously now, if we click on, sorry, Liz, now that's totally changed, and it's been a real celebration actually when they come to the meetings. You know, we sit in a circle, we have our lovely refreshments in the middle, and everyone gets to speak. We basically work around the circle, and we all get a chance to add to the plan. You know, we all get to say what's going well, we all get to say what's still tricky, how we're going to get there, and next steps. And then you can get the ideas off the parents as well, because at the end of the day, you know, they really know their children the best, you know, more than us. So yeah, so basically it's done all together collaboratively with everybody, and it all on the board so that they can see. And then what we did was take a photograph of the board, and then put that into our shared area in the children's folders. And again, that was really good, because actually previously, when we were like, oh, we've got reviews, a lot of teachers were like, oh, you know, right, I've got to write up these plans before. They'd have to sit there and think of ideas to improve the children and take them on their next steps, which actually, if you've not had any training in that area and you're a new teacher, that's a really hard thing to try and sit and do. So basically it's been really good for the teachers' workload as well, because actually they turn up with no plan, but you know, they've got their ideas of what they think is going well and what's still tricky. but we write the plan in the meeting so that then it's recorded for them. So all they've got to do afterwards is just type up those notes, you know, from that. There's no thinking involved or anything then. So, you know, teachers as well as parents have really enjoyed doing this because it takes a lot of the workload off the teachers, a lot of thinking time. Next slide, please. Thinking what else yeah, so as I said, all the parents and the outside agencies are all involved to encourage to add to the plan. And again, even when we go away, we sort of say to them, you know, take this. If there's anything else that you think we've missed, you know, let us know. We can change that again. All children also have a one-page profile that's shared, and the meeting is it's a celebration of that child, and basically it starts off like you said earlier with the you know, what do they like and admire about me, which obviously is a really good start to everything. It's a really positive you know, way to do it, and like I said, we, you know, sit around a cozy table, lots of refreshments, very relaxed and trusting atmosphere basically that we try to give, and like I say, all of our parents have been really positive about that approach. You know, we have a parent forum, a SEND parent forum, and we ask them, you know, advice on what they think we need to do. And that was one of the things that they said they wanted to feel more involved. So we've done that, and they've come back and said, yeah, they love the new way of doing things. And again, and our parents forum has been amazing because that gives us all ideas from them. We came up with a SEND handbook as such, you know, like what to do, you know, what's going to happen now my child's on the SEND register. So again, we get loads of really good ideas from our parents, and I think that really helps that they're feeling, you know, part of it, that they're doing it with us and we're not doing things to them. Yeah, so anything you want, anything else?
Yeah, so I think the real sort of root of it is that relationship with our parents, making sure that they are feeling a part of our school family, and that includes when we're doing things like SEND review plans. You know, we want them to know exactly what's going on. You know, when we first did our parent forum, we had a lot of feedback that said, you know, there was jargon being used, and they didn't know who the people were in meetings necessarily.
Sometimes they weren't aware of the fact that their child was on the SEND register sometimes.
Yeah.
So that even being clear about that, you know, that, you know, they need to know, don't they?
And I think this sort of journey we've been on with co-production of using our parents as the experts to work out the best way that we can meet our child's needs and really try to help them, you know, fulfill their potential, has been a really great one. And the teachers have loved it because it's helped their workload, but equally they're still managing to have this positive experience with the parents, and it means that they are supported, the parents are supported, and essentially it all is in the best, you know, it's all the best for the child.
Plus, as Senko, you get to put your, you know, you get to help more, to be honest, in that meeting, whereas before they'd turn up and they'd already written the plan, whereas actually I found it really exciting as Senko to be able to think, you know, they literally came with what was tricky, and I got to try and help with ideas, and as a Senko, I loved that, you know, it was like, oh, try this, you know, so it just made it all more exciting as well, to be honest. So
yeah, and I think that's us, really. Yeah. Thanks, Jackie.
Absolutely amazing, ladies. I think what you said at the beginning was really true. It really is a celebration of co-production and a journey that you've been on. I think if we can just stop screen sharing for a moment, it might be a good time to just take any questions or comments. I know that Helen's in the meeting tonight, and she's a parent, and she's written in the chat that in her experience, her child's not been involved in a review. Very much the recommendation is that we need to be including our young people in the review. As you said, Helen, it's about them. We're doing it for them, and we've got, you know, I think there are really key issues that we need to ensure they're involved. How do you do it, Rachel and Hannah? How do you ensure that they're involved?
I'd say through our one-page profiles. That's the way that we're recording our pupil voice, and we also would invite them at the end of the meeting so that they could see We used to ask them about bringing a piece of work that they were proud of as well, that they could put up on a showing wall. Yeah, so just like that, really. They wouldn't be there for the whole meeting, but more, you know, because obviously they're aware of the fact that their parents are there. We'd have them at the end. But, you know, that's something we could look into. You know, if other schools, are they, you know, doing it where they stay for the whole meeting?
I'm going to come off my video because I think it affects my bandwidth, but I think just your response, Hannah, shows the way that you work in terms of constantly looking to improve. But I agree, for some children, being there for the whole session isn't appropriate. Some might be there, might be there at the beginning to hear all of that positives, all the good things we love and admire, and they might choose to then step out. Have we got any questions? I know in the chat people have said it sounds amazing, but has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask anyone?
Jackie?
Yes, Liz. Lisa.
It's Lisa.
Sorry,
hi. Could I ask Rachel and Hannah? This is what I'm looking to do in some of my schools. I'm one of the LSS teachers, sorry, hello. And how long would you say you allocate for each of those person-centred review meetings?
Yeah, we spend about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the child. So it might be, you know, feeling that there's a lot of energy, or we feel that actually we need a bit longer to go through things with our parents, you know, if they, especially if we're building up a certain transition, we might have it for a little bit longer, but generally it's about half an hour, isn't it? 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. If it's like an annual review, obviously they're a bit, you know, they are longer. Yeah. Your EHCPs and things, but for your SEND, you know, reviews, it's about 30 to 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done some this week following that pattern, and they did them on Zoom, obviously because of the current situation, and they took about 40 minutes maximum. So they don't take any longer. I think that's the key message, really, Lisa, is doing it this way doesn't take any longer. I think some people are frightened of doing it because they think, oh, getting all those views, it's going to take ages. But it's just using the time more wisely rather than listening to one person read the report. So I think it's a good question, because I think that can sometimes be a barrier for people doing it.
And actually, the actual thinking time beforehand is a nightmare, because when you've got people to share with, and like you say, the parents to share those ideas, you know, it's infinitely more powerful, and, you know, it saves time as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think maybe some people might find it daunting in the fact that, you know, if you're a new Senko, or, you know, having to think of those ideas on the spot, but having the confidence to actually say, do you know what, I'm not sure about that one yet, let me find out, you know. And actually it's okay if there's something that you don't know, to go away and ask someone else that might know, and add that to the report afterwards, you know, and say, you know, and give that to the parents afterwards. You know, I'm sure they would understand that, you know, as well.
Yeah, thanks.
I recently completed the review it was today and yesterday on Zoom, and we did the same. We had the plan shared on the screen, so the parents were at home, they could see the blank plan in front of me, and myself and the teacher sat here, and we talked through it and kept asking the parents, and we typed it with the parents looking at it. We've managed to kind of tweak it even in this kind of current climate, which I think has been really positive as well.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
We've got a question from Helen in the chat. Why aren't all schools doing the same? Great question, Helen.
Jackie, can I explain what I mean?
Yeah.
So from a parent's view, I mean, it's amazing listening to what you do at your school, and it's quite envious that my school aren't doing the same. And I'm just wondering why, from a professional hat on, why, you know, why are we praising schools that are doing such amazing work and making other schools follow the best practice that they're doing? It's just so frustrating that every school's offering something different.
I hear that frustration, Helen, and I understand. I think the key is that we've got to continue to share this good practice, like Hannah and Rachel have done tonight, and we try to ensure that everybody sees it, that we are holding them up in high esteem. You know, I know their head teacher spoke to head teachers about this approach. So we are trying hard to share the very positive messages with the aim that we can improve consistency across all schools, because we know that your question is valid, because we know from lived experiences that not everybody is getting the same deal. So I think we just have to reassure you in one sense that we're on that journey, and we're trying our very best to share the good messages and ensure that everybody sees the benefits. You know, I'm sat here thinking what Rachel and Hannah just said. It saves time. It helps me as a Senko. If we problem solve together, it's trying to show the benefits, and never mind the benefits to the young person and to the family, that our key duty is to put them at the centre of this. So I welcome your challenge, and I welcome the question, because it's a valid question, and we've got to just keep working on it, and people on this call have got to keep sharing their fantastic practice as they are.
Jackie, do you mind if I interrupt there just for a sec? Just to speak to Helen, to say I think you're right in what you're saying, but things are definitely moving forward this year with how each Senko is working with different schools and sharing the good practice. And I think for a long time we have worked in isolation, but all these courses that are going on over the next couple of weeks, but also we're having regular Senko meetings as well where we're sharing information. So I think we're at the beginning, but we're already starting to see lots of good practice being shared.
That's great. I just think it needs to maybe get to the families more. I don't think many families are aware. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm a professional as well, so I get to see both ends. But I think there are a lot of families that don't realise all the work that you're doing. So it's how you share it and get it across to them so they know.
Yeah, we probably need to be a bit more obvious with everything that we do. I think that as a school, we're really trying that if we're doing, and I say this to the teachers a lot as well, is that if you're doing anything extra, we need to be obvious, and we need to be sharing that with our parents, so that they know that you're putting in all that legwork. And I think probably we just need to do that a bit more and be dead obvious with those amazing things that everyone is trying to do, so that, you know, like you say, parents know. You know, because even now, you know, even though we're doing all those things, every now and again there might be a parent that slipped through the net and you've not managed to, you know, so it's even looking at ways that we're sharing that information with parents, making sure that everyone has heard everything that you're putting in there. You know, if they don't read the newsletter or they don't, you know, get the letters from home, you know, we need to pick up on that, don't we?
Absolutely. A couple of questions. How are people coping in the current COVID situation? I think you've already you talked about it, but in terms of virtual meetings, are you having parents in? How do you make them feel comfortable in a socially distanced or virtual? I'm aware of time, and we're going to finish off with a video that we'd just like you to look at and sit back and relax. I just want to say to both Mary, so Mary's written it there, but both to Hannah and Rachel, amazing. Thank you so much for your input. I think everybody's really benefited so much from you being here tonight. So thank you so much. You were a shining example of co-production. Thank you.